Hi there. And I have to confess once again, I bought a cast iron pan I didn't need. But there's a good reason for acquiring this one when you see what it is. The Lodge 2020 Made in America cast iron skillet. This is part of their annual series, and this year they've done a tribute to the famous image of Rosie the Riveter. Folks on the Cast Iron Cooking Group have loved this pan since it was introduced, but then over the past month, something else has happened that's made this pan truly special. That would be, of course, the great worldwide pandemic taking place all over the world right now. A lot has been said about this tragedy and also about how people all over the world, including here in the United States, have been making a tremendous effort to fight this deadly disease. And I think this has added some special meaning to this new Lodge cast iron pan.
Lodge released this pan to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed women the right to vote here in the United States. However, the image of Rosie the Riveter comes from World War II, and the famous phrase, "we can do it," was meant to encourage people and support the war effort. But when Lodge released this pan in March of 2020, they certainly didn't expect it would coincide with the United States mobilizing to fight another war, namely a battle against a deadly virus that spread worldwide over the course of only a few months. And it's not over yet. This is a tragedy requiring a massive effort from everyone to defeat this unseen enemy, one that certainly parallels the war effort that gave us the famous image of Rosie the Riveter. And as we do our best to help one another in this modern-day battle, we can still use Rosie the Riveter as a symbol and a slogan for our efforts to win against this deadly disease.
So now that I have this new pan, it's not just going to sit on a shelf. It's time to break this in, and so we're going to be making some smothered pork chops. And this is a dish that certainly works best when made in a cast iron skillet.
Preparing this dish is only a matter of chopping up some onions into large pieces so we can use them for making onion gravy. Once this is done, we can get right into cooking and heat up our cast iron skillet at medium heat for 10 minutes. This will get the pan good and hot, and we just add a little cooking oil to the hot pan. With that, we're ready to add our pork chops. We want to get a good crust on the meat, so be sure to simply let the chops sear for about 2 minutes before flipping them. For the record, I used this skillet right out of the box the day I received it, and these pork chops were made with the original factory seasoning. And despite the so-called rough surface of this modern Lodge pan, the chops did not stick to the pan, and they were easy to turn over. These pork chops are thin, and they don't take long to thoroughly cook on both sides. We flip the chops every 2 minutes, and we only have to flip them 3 times before testing them with a probe thermometer. And once the chops are at the right temperature, we move them onto a plate to rest, and now we can prepare the gravy. Now we add the onions to the hot pan and stir-fry them until they change color and become soft and caramelized. With a hot cast iron pan, this only takes a few minutes. Be sure to keep stirring the onions so they don't burn. Once the onions are ready, we add half a stick of butter into the pan and stir everything until the butter is melted.
This seems to be foaming a lot. I'm wondering if it's from the juice from the pork. That happens every time too.
We add about 1/3 of a cup of flour to the pan, a little at a time, and stir everything together to make a thick roux. It only takes a couple of minutes of stirring to cook the roux, and we're ready to begin adding broth to make our gravy. One thing about making gravy in cast iron, it's really easy for the gravy to be too thick, and we have to keep adding broth a little at a time and stirring it vigorously until the gravy reaches the right consistency.
The rest of it. You're gonna need the rest of it. I promise you.
Actually, it's not turning out too badly, but I will need more, unfortunately.
Yep.
There we go. Gravy.
And now we're ready to add the pork chops. We simply take the pork chops and add them back into the pan, turning them over to completely smother them in the gravy. We only need to simmer the pork chops in the gravy for about a minute before they can be taken out and served. That's why this dish is so good to make, especially during these times when everyone is at home and we have to make sure our food supplies last. It's fast and easy to make, and it only uses a few very simple ingredients. And the result is a hot, tasty, and delicious set of pork chops, smothered in onion gravy. These are pork chops that are not dried out and cooked well beyond well done, and they are tender, moist, and delicious.
Finally, one more thing. I haven't seen any attempts by Large Cast Iron to cash in on this tragedy in order to sell this pan or any of their other products, and this is good. Also, just as important, I'm not being compensated by Large for making this video. They didn't send me this pan as a promotional gift. I bought it myself because I'm a satisfied customer and I like the look of this pan. Lodge has tried not to associate this cast iron skillet with the pandemic, and that's precisely why I'd like to see this pan used as a symbol of our fight against this terrible disease. Far too many people have died already in this tragedy, and in order to beat this, everyone has to work together to save as many lives as we can and to keep people like you or me from becoming sick. And that's why we can take the message of Rosie the Riveter and use it today in our battle against a disease that doesn't discriminate. No matter who you are, we need everybody's help to beat this and bring our country and our world back to normal. And yes, we can do it. Thank you for watching.